This was in 2023. I worked at a gas station, usually evening shifts, and I lived alone in a small home. We had a lot of regulars at our station, customers that would come in all the time, and usually around the same time as well. One of these customers was a guy that came in near the end of my shift a few times a week. Nobody knew his name, but everybody knew of him. Usually being the only cashier, I'd be the one interacting with him. He was always a bit strange, he didn't talk much, and always had a tired look on his face. This night he came in as he always did, near the end of my shift, grabbing a couple of things and coming up to the register. I scanned everything, he paid, and he left. We didn't exchange any words aside from a simple greeting. 20 minutes later, I finished my shift and spent a few minutes cleaning up, clocking out, and leaving at 1:45 a.m. As I walked out to my car, I noticed the man was still in the parking lot. He was standing awkwardly outside of his car with his hands at his side, just looking at the station. I got in my car and went home. I didn't have work the following day, so I stayed up a bit later than usual. I didn't get into bed until probably 3:30 a.m. Only moments after getting under the covers, though, a bright floodlight glared into my bedroom through one of the windows. I thought it was a neighbor coming home, so I didn't really care about it. After a second, the light shut off, which unconsciously confirmed to me that it was just headlights. I fell asleep only several minutes later. I woke up in the night to what I thought was a subtle sound, the way I woke up half asleep, and in the middle of a dream, it was hard to tell what was real and what wasn't. I rubbed my eyes and tapped my phone on the nightstand. It was blank, no message or phone calls came in. I wasn't sure what to think. I was going to just ignore it and go back to sleep, as I wasn't even fully awake yet to begin with. But the slightest thing caught my eye as I rolled back over. The bedroom door was cracked open just a little bit. I always close it completely before going to bed, so seeing it not fully shut immediately woke me up. I got out of bed and walked over, pushing it closed to see if maybe it was stuck for some reason. It smoothly latched into the door frame just like it always did, so there was no way I'd mistakenly left it open. I felt my body get shaky, my heart was pounding, but even with everything pointing otherwise, I still tried to convince myself that this was somehow nothing. I tried to think of any possible way that this was something to not worry about, but my mind thought back to the light I saw before falling asleep. I walked over to the window and peeked through the blinds. There was a car parked in my driveway. I could only see the back half of it, but I instantly felt a rush of panic. Someone was at my house, and someone might be inside with me. I hurried over to the door again and flicked on the lights. I stood there by the door panicking and thinking, realizing I should call 911 just to be safe. I stayed frozen by the door, listening. That's when I heard a soft, shuffling sound coming from somewhere in my home. Then silence again. I tried to stay quiet. Another sound, like someone stepping carefully on the floor. Someone was definitely in my home, and they were moving around. I heard what sounded like a cabinet door closing very quietly. Then footsteps again, slow and deliberate, like someone trying not to make noise. My hands were shaking as I realized this person had been in here for who knows how long. They could have been standing over me while I slept. The footsteps stopped right outside my bedroom area. I could hear breathing coming from the other side of my bedroom door. Then I heard a soft clicking sound, like someone taking pictures with their phone. I knew I had to get to my phone, but I was terrified to move. Every small sound I made felt like it would give me away. The person in my home started moving again. I could hear them going through my things, opening drawers, moving items around. I looked at the nightstand that my phone was on and quickly grabbed it. I pulled some blankets and pillows to make it look like someone was still sleeping in the bed. Then I quickly hid in the bedroom closet and left the door cracked just enough to see out. I was just about to call 911, but then I heard the bedroom door slowly open. I could see his outline as he stepped into the room. He stood there for a moment, looking at the bed. Then he walked over and stood right next to where he thought I was sleeping. I watched him start to take his shirt off. Then he started unbuckling his belt. He leaned down close to the bed and said that it looked cozy in there and that he was coming to join me. That's when I knew I had to run. I burst out of the closet, out of the bedroom, and sprinted toward the front door. But when I grabbed the door handle, it wouldn't turn. He had jammed it somehow. I was trapped. I heard him moving in the bedroom behind me. He was coming out. I ran to the kitchen area and I grabbed a knife from the counter and ran straight to the bathroom. The bathroom was the only room with a door that locked. I made it inside and slammed the door shut just as he reached the hallway. He wasn't trying to be quiet anymore. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely turn the lock, but I managed to get it secured. He started pushing on the door from the other side. The frame was creaking under the pressure. That's when he started talking to me through the door. He said he had been watching me for months. He knew I lived alone. He knew when I was out and when I slept. His voice was calm and quiet, which made it even more terrifying. He said he wasn't going anywhere. He had all night. I called the police. At least 20 minutes had gone by already. The car in my driveway was still there when officers showed up, but the man was gone. It didn't take long for them to identify him via his car though, and I felt nauseous when it turned out to be the man from the gas station. In hindsight, I had a suspicion that it was him from when I was hiding in the closet, but it was dark, and I really just wanted to get the hell out of there to safety, and wasn't thinking of who he reminded me of. It was clear he'd been watching and following me for some time. The thought that this might not have been the first time he'd been inside my house, watching me sleep, made me feel sick. I think the only reason I'd woken up that night was because he made some kind of noise, and I might not have woken up otherwise. If not for that, I don't know what would have happened to me, or if I'd even be here right now to tell the story. When I was 24, I started seeing a girl who I met on a dating app for a while. Her name was Madison. We hung out a few times in the span of a little over a month. At first, things seemed all right. The first time we hung out was a quick brunch at a cafe, less than an hour, more of a screening process to make sure she seemed normal. The second time we met was at a nearby sushi place for dinner. We both had a nice time and the conversation flowed well. The third time we hung out, we had dinner again, and this was when I started to question things. Question if I really clicked with her personality, or if I felt like there was something slightly off about her. The date ended with a kiss, still the first and only time we ever kissed. So I convinced myself that because I let her kiss me, things went all right. It wasn't until a couple weeks later that we hung out one final time. We went out for dinner once again. However, this time I went into it with a less excited mindset, and I was paying more attention to little quirks in her behavior that I realized were kind of unusual. It's hard to explain exactly what I mean, but some of her mannerisms just gave off possessive and borderline controlling vibes. She started getting really pushy during this dinner as well, trying to make plans for the next week immediately. I'm not a fan of being rushed into commitments, especially not when I'm still getting to know someone. I politely said I'd need to check my schedule, and within a few minutes I mentioned I was tired, heavily implying we should wrap things up. I asked for the check, we split it, and then we grabbed our jackets and left. As we were walking to our cars, she stopped me and very bluntly asked if I wanted to come back to her place. I said not tonight, and that I'm tired and have work tomorrow, which was a lie. She shockingly kept trying, saying I could call in sick to work tomorrow and such. I found it to be absurd whether she was serious or not. I made the decision at that point that I wouldn't see her again. I went to my car in the shared public parking garage and started driving home slowly, just because I was an overly cautious driver. I was just casually checking my mirrors like I normally do, which is probably why I noticed the same headlights were behind me still after I made 2 right turns and merged onto my residential street. At a certain stoplight, I realized it looked like Madison's car. I texted her asking if she was following me. She texted back pretty quickly saying that she was just making sure that I was safe, and with a smiley, winky face emoji. I called her, but she wouldn't pick up. This was so weird and quite frankly creepy. I didn't need her protection. I pulled over and texted her to stop following me, telling her I'm fine. I watched her headlights stay back 1 block the whole time, and then she drove off past me. She winked and blew me a kiss as she went past. She didn't text back, not until I got home and was settled in. She said she hoped she didn't weird me out tonight, and that she just wanted to make sure I got home safely. I didn't answer. Exactly 45 minutes later, she followed up asking if everything was okay. I still decided to wait a bit to respond. Later that evening, she sent me a message saying she was worried she did something wrong. So I decided to reply before it got worse. I told her that I had a great time getting to know her, but I just thought our personalities didn't click that much. I also told her that I really just wanted to focus on myself right now, and I hoped she would understand. After this, the angry text messages started coming in, the worst of which said that I had been leading her on the whole time. She demanded I reimburse her for half of all our dates. There were a few other angry texts that involved personal information, so I'm not going to include them. But they were enough to prompt me to block her. I thought this would be the end of it. But then I started receiving texts from burner numbers non-stop. I ignored all of them until she finally seemed to get the message and stopped. The next day when I got home from work, I found a box of cupcakes on my doorstep along with a handwritten note. The note was an apology from Madison asking for a second chance. She somehow knew where I lived. That disturbed me. In her mind, she somehow must have thought that this would come off as charming or sweet, when in reality, it was extremely alarming. I unblocked her and sent a long and final text to please not contact me anymore and never come to my place again, or I'd file for a restraining order. I immediately blocked her number again, so I wouldn't see her response. I thought things would be over now, but I couldn't have been more wrong. A few days later, I was taking a shower early in the morning when I heard something. I wasn't sure what it was at first, but I felt as though I was hearing noises from my bedroom. I turned off the water and listened closely. Then I heard what was very obviously someone moving around in my place. Nobody was supposed to be there. Even though I was confused about what I was hearing, I immediately thought, intruder. I quietly got out and wrapped a towel around myself. I listened at the bathroom door for a moment before carefully moving to my bedroom to get my phone. I heard them moving around in the living room and knew I had to hide. My bed was pushed against the wall on one side, and I had boxes and storage bins underneath it. I quickly but quietly moved some of the storage boxes aside and squeezed myself under the bed. It was tight and uncomfortable, but I managed to fit by using the storage bins to shield me from view. I called 911 from under there, whispering as quietly as possible. I heard some noises from the living room area. Then footsteps came toward my bedroom. After they entered, there was silence. The whole room was carpeted, so I couldn't hear any potential footsteps clearly. Then I heard my closet door begin opening. I held my breath to mask any sound. I could feel my heart racing. I heard a female voice muttering something under her breath. In that moment, I thought that it might have sounded like Madison's voice. I still didn't move, and I prayed that my phone wouldn't get any notifications. Now I heard more rummaging sounds. She was going through my entire closet. Then I saw her walk over and lean against the bedroom wall. I was staring at the outline of 2 shoes from under the bed. Even in the dim light, it was visible. From what I could see of her legs and build, it looked like it could be Madison, but I couldn't be completely sure in the darkness. I don't know what she was doing, but she stood there for at least a minute. I heard the closet door close. She moved away while muttering something under her breath that I couldn't make out. And then I heard footsteps walk back toward the living room. I stayed on the line and remained under the bed for 10 to 15 minutes until one of the police officers showed up and I went to meet them at the front door. And even that was tense. After letting him in, I told him everything he didn't already know from the phone call he responded to. He did a sweep of the house, and during that time, another officer arrived. This one was female, who also assisted in the search. It turned out the living room window, which I had left open, is big enough for someone to crawl through. Though I don't think anyone ever pictured someone squeezing through the bush in front of the window and then crawling through it. They also noticed my bedroom window was slightly ajar, though that wasn't where she entered. The bedroom window was too high up and had no easy access from outside. I gave a verbal statement of everything. I was given a report number, and they left. I called my family and told them everything that had happened. I went to the police station with my report number and gave as much information as possible, such as text screenshots, including her admitting she was following me home. They said they'd investigate, though without solid proof that it was her inside my house, it would be tricky. I think the case lost steam when I really didn't have any proof of anything. I did, however, successfully get a restraining order against her, and I was advised to never accuse her of having broken in, nor make contact with her again. She thankfully didn't contact me after this. But from that point till the moment I moved out of that house, I was always uncomfortable she would be creeping around outside. At the time of this story, I was a student at the local college, studying psychology, and I was living in a small house in a small college town. I had just moved into this place over summer break, out of the dorms, and was excited to finally have my own space. I often preferred to study at home rather than on campus, so I had my study set up upstairs in a small room with my desk right by a window that faces the front of the house. I liked being able to open it for fresh air or have the view when it was nice outside. This was summer, just a few weeks back into classes, so I pretty much had the window open all day. One regular weekday though, around 2 p.m. I was doing my usual studying at my desk when I noticed something out the window. There was a person, a man in a hoodie, sunglasses, and baseball cap, standing across the road on the sidewalk. He wasn't walking past or waiting for a bus or anything. He was pretending to look at his phone while slowly walking back and forth. I couldn't tell if he could see me in the window or not, but I quickly hid behind the curtain to watch him. He took a photo of my house and wrote something down before walking away. I thought it was really strange, but that was about it. What else was I supposed to think or do? I continued with my studies. I did an occasional check out the window every now and again, but seeing nothing else, I wasn't too worried about it. The weekend came, and I was relaxing downstairs in the living room when around 4 p.m., I happened to glance out the front window. The same man was back, this time standing near the trash bins across the street. He had the same hoodie, sunglasses, and baseball cap on, making it impossible to see his face clearly. This time I grabbed my phone and started recording him through the window. He seemed to notice movement in my window because he looked directly at my house. Even though I couldn't see his eyes behind the sunglasses, I felt like he was staring right at me. He pulled out his phone again and appeared to take more photos of my house. Then he walked away like nothing happened. I saved the video and immediately messaged my friend about what was happening. She told me to post it on social media to see if anyone recognized him. I posted the video with a caption asking if anyone knew who this guy was and why he kept coming by my house. A few people commented that they'd seen him around the neighborhood, but no one knew who he was. The following week, I was back to my usual routine, getting to work on assignments and staying pretty busy the whole day. I had a lot of video calls with my classmates for group projects. During one of these calls, I spaced out and happened to glance out the window again. That man was there again, standing in the same area and looking up at the house just like he was before. Something about this time was 10 times more creepy and eerie. I was wondering, why the hell was he back here again? I must have stared off at him for a while because one of my classmates noticed I looked worried and asked if everything was okay. I told them that everything was fine, and I tried to refocus back on the assignment. I kept looking back though. He was standing there for a minute. Then I looked back again, and he was gone. The rest of my study session felt like a drag. I couldn't stop thinking about this random guy watching my house. It was just so odd. When I finished studying, I went outside and walked around my property, looking for any reason for him to be watching my house like that. Everything looked normal. However, I did notice that the window of my study was visible and clear from where the man was standing, which means he could likely see me looking at him. I went back inside and made dinner. I had a call with my friend that night, and I mentioned it again. She agreed it was odd, but said it was likely nothing. After getting off the phone, I sat down and watched TV, hoping to get my mind off of it. A couple hours passed. It was maybe 10:30 p.m. I had the show turned down because I was getting tired, but with the low volume, I was able to hear what sounded like the door handle jiggling. I jumped up from the couch and stared at the front door. Then I heard soft tapping on the window next to the door. I hurried over to the door and looked out the peephole. I could see a figure crouched down by my porch, but they moved away quickly. Once they were gone, I opened the door. Immediately, I noticed a note jammed between the wire mesh and metal frame of my screen door. It was short. It just said, "Chloe, let me in. We belong together." I was not only confused, but horrified. How did they know my name, and what did the note even mean? At first, I thought that maybe they got my name from my mail, but I had only recently moved into the house, and none of my mail was coming to the property yet. Besides, most of my mail comes electronically anyway, bills and bank statements and everything else. They didn't even knock or stay long enough for me to have answered the door, not that I would have anyway. The next morning, I found another note jammed between the wire mesh and metal frame of my screen door. This one said, "I know you're alone, Chloe. I've been watching you." When I went outside to look around, I noticed my trash cans had been moved and gone through. I also noticed footprints in the dirt leading from my driveway to the side of my house. Someone had been walking around my property during the night. That's when I realized he might have been looking into my windows at night. I immediately went around and closed all my curtains and blinds. This was enough for me to call the police. 2 officers came over, and I told them everything. Unfortunately, there wasn't all that much they could do, though. They pretty much wrote it all down and said if something else happens to call them. It really didn't make me feel much better. I stayed up late that night, laying in bed unable to sleep. I literally just laid there for hours, thinking about this man that was stalking my house and the eerie notes he left. Then at just before 2 a.m., the doorbell rang through the otherwise silent house. My body froze up. The silence of the house was now deafening as I listened in fear. After a few seconds, the doorbell rang again. My heart started beating faster. I got my phone and called 911. They sent officers right away, but the doorbell kept ringing over and over while I waited. I crept to the window and peeked through the curtain. I could see the man standing at the front door, staring at it, while he robotically kept ringing the doorbell. He was still wearing the hoodie, sunglasses, and baseball cap, even though it was the middle of the night. The operator on the phone updated me that the cops were 5 minutes out. And just after that, there was a longer pause between the doorbell rings, 15 seconds, then 30, then a whole minute passed. When the officers showed up, nobody was at the door. They were too late again. But they found a final message jammed between the wire mesh and metal frame of my screen door that said, "Chloe, I will be back to claim you as my bride." I told them what happened, and they seemed to take it a little bit more seriously this time, but it still wasn't enough for them to do anything about it. They said they would have an officer patrol around here for the next couple of weeks. Those weeks came and went, and the man never came back to my door or to the street, at least from what I know. I moved out not long afterwards. I had only been in that house for a short time anyway, since I'd just moved in before classes started. My new place was only a block away, but I felt safer moving in with classmates. It still scares the hell out of me, though. The thought of the creepy notes and him calling me his bride is just terrifying. I still get the creeps whenever I walk past that house. Then there's also the thought of him finding me again, that lingers in my head. I don't know what he wanted, who he was, or if he's truly gone for good.